How do you create a legend? Well, you start with a block of foam, a saw, a pair of scissors, and preferably no idea that that's what you're doing. In the last episode of the podcast, I talked with designers Peter Savieri and Jamie Carroll about what makes Miss Piggy look her best. And today I invited Peter to come back and join me as co-host because we are talking to Miss Piggy's original creator, Bonnie Erickson. We're going to learn all about how the Miss Piggy puppet was made, what it was like working in the Muppet Workshop, and how very close Miss Piggy came to stealing the Hope Diamond.
I can't give you anything but love, baby. That's the only thing I've plenty of, baby.
Kissy kissy and welcome to another episode of the Fantastic Miss Piggy podcast. I'm Danny Horn, and this podcast chronicles my journey to learn everything there is to know about that divine swine, the incomparable Miss Piggy. Today, I've got a very special guest and a special co-host, who I will introduce first. Got designer, illustrator, and bon vivant, the delightful Peter Savieri.
Hello.
Kissy kissy, Peter.
How are you?
I am really good. I'm so glad that you're joining me. Listeners may recall Peter from the epic episode that we did about the evolution of Miss Piggy's look and design. And so I am very happy to have you here today.
Happy to be here.
Because today we've got a very special guest, a woman who in the early to mid 1970s helped to design and build many of the essential Muppet Show characters, including Statler and Waldorf, the Swedish Chef, Zoot, the Newsman, and of course the one and only Miss Piggy. Bonnie Erickson, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, it's my pleasure to be here.
So good to see you. Is there anything top of mind that you wanted to talk about up front?
I don't think so. I'm much better at answering questions than I am at initiating something, except to say, as I did just before we started, that working with Jim and the collaborative group, because everything that we did was so collaborative, was the luckiest time for me in my life. It's also launched my business. When Jim became one of our first clients, my husband and I started a business. That's just a witness to how generous he was about everything in his life and how much I appreciated working with him.
Let's talk about how you got involved with Jim Henson and the Muppets, how that first happened.
Well, it was sort of interesting. I had been doing costuming in New York for about 7.5 years. I worked with a designer primarily, but I was doing freelance work, which I loved. Did Broadway, off-Broadway, Lincoln Center, all kinds of things. And sometimes I did specialty costumes, but my background was really in, I was a theater major and a design and minor for college. And when I came to New York, one of the things I did too is went to the Art Students League briefly. So I heard from a friend that Jim Henson, whom I only knew, this was before Sesame Street was out, I only knew from these wonderful, abstract, crazy things that he'd done on all these interview shows, things like that. I just thought he was brilliant. And I heard he was looking for a costumer. And I'm going, really? He seems to have, all the costumes he needs. And also, who, me? And so the second time I heard it, it was from someone who had been connected to him. And they said, no, really, he is. You should give him a call. So I called. And at that time, I spoke to Jim. I think when I first started at Muppets, there were 7 of us, including the receptionist. So
that's amazing. And so he was there.
He was actually there in the office. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I spoke to him and Diana Birkenfield, who was the producer for him, and set up an appointment to go and have an interview. And at the time, I was working on these life-size muslin women that were wearing my antique clothes collection. So that's some of the information I brought, plus an opera that we'd been doing at the Manhattan School of Music, using a lot of clear plastic and plastic products, which was, I think, appealing to Jim with new materials, as he always does. So he looked at my portfolio. I talked to them both, and they said, give us a call tomorrow, and we'll let you know, because it was for the Muppets Frog Prince. And of course, then I saw as a special, there was a need for costumes for these puppets. I gave a call from a phone booth the next day, and they said, yes, we'd like to hire for this job. And I thought that was fantastic. So that's how I got my first job with Jim.
And that was 1971?
1970.
Oh, 1970.
Yeah, and I think it was fall of 70.
Fantastic. And so what were you working on for the Frogman?
Well, I did all the costumes for the puppets themselves,
Mhm.
but my first encounter when I came in the first day is Jim, I think, sort of as a bit of a prank on Don Celine, put me at his desk, who was very proprietary about things.
Mhm.
And there was a time when we all said hello to each other. Carol Lee Wilcox was there, John Lovelady, Danny Seagren was someone there. A lot of people came and went as freelance people, but those were the mainstays. And I'm sitting at the desk starting my sketches, and I hadn't really done this before. I was
Mhm.
not originally a puppet person. I was a designer. I was, an artist. I was a sculptor, but I was really excited to be part of this group. And at the end of the table was this mound of foam rubber. And it had holes in it. It looked like it had been burned. It had stuff sticking out of it. And as I'm working away, I looked corner of my eye. I thought I saw it move. And I look at Don, he's sitting there working away on sewing something. And I go back to my work. I did it like 3 times. The third time I went, no, there's something going on. I reached over and I grabbed this lump. I lifted it up. Don Celine had put an eye hook in the inside of this hollow mound, tied a string to it, drilled a hole in the table, put the string through down to the floor, another eye hook, and then up to his foot. So he could sit there.
Excellent.
And I think
That's so
that
good.
was my test. And I passed.
You're
That's
hazing.
so good.
And so for that time on, Don and I shared a desk, which I think I'm happy to do. But that
Oh,
was
that's
just the
lovely.
beginning of the kinds of pranks and play that made life such a great experience and such fun. I really believe in play. In fact,
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
on the board of the Museum of Play up in Rochester, New York, because I believe in it so strongly as ways to learn,
Mhm.
exploration. I think it's so important for everyone. So that's what we did, and Jim encouraged it.
Yeah, and that really speaks to
Amazing.
how warm everybody was.
Everybody, it's well, and all of us sort of have stayed friends for a long time.
Mm.
We're still in touch with each other as much as we can. There's a camaraderie that developed. There was a playfulness, even, when we were in England doing the Muppet Show, the playfulness between the performers
Yeah.
who over those years, I mean, they became personal friends as well as puppet friends. And the kinds of hijinks that were, I mean, they would say, okay, we've got the shot, but it didn't end.
Mm.
So it was great fun to be on the set. I have to say, I feel very fortunate to have had that kind of opportunity because not everybody gets to have a job where they love going to work every day.
Right.
Yeah. And such a high pressure environment as well to have that kind of flow and warmth and yeah, just play in such a high pressure environment when the show was up and running and having to do so much so quickly.
Well, I mean, we did work hard. I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't say we didn't work hard, but a lot of that was leavened by the fact that we had a sense of play and we had this feeling that it was supported by Jim and he participated in this
Yes.
kind of thing. I mean, when my husband brought mice that he rescued from a research project into the studio where we were working, we had them in slinkies throughout the room and in aquariums. And Jim knew it. He heard them boing boinging through the day. This was the kind of thing where experimentation. We made houses to see how fast it would take for them to destroy them. Don Celine, in particular,
Uh,
he encouraged that kind of thing, and gifts and strange things going back and forth between people never end.
it must have been oh, sorry, I forgot my question. I
It
forgot
was
my question.
fun. Peter, I would say it was great fun.
It must have been also very good for the camaraderie and fun of it to know that Jim was on the floor under puppets, working on air. He's working at every single level and far from just managing the creative
Oh no,
production of things.
no, there was no way he was not involved in all of that. I mean, he was early on, he was in the shop building, he was working on stuff with us, the performances and the performers coming in to do rehearsals or to try puppets. I mean, we could actually build a puppet to fit a person's hand because you know, such a close group.
Very important.
And I think part of that is because Jim was so self-assured that what he was doing was what he wanted to do, and that it was a successful kind of thing to do. He never had doubts which would have made him suspect anybody else of not having as much confidence as he did. It
wonderful.
gave him the freedom to allow us to do all kinds of things.
Yes.
And that was really due to
the trust.
Yeah. His confidence in himself was enormous.
With Jim's, because I love Jim's design style. I love that simplicity and the geometries, and just the way he captured characters in such a distilled way is always that it's a little bit of a guiding principle for me as a designer as well. But I absolutely adore your design style as well, and the way the pigs created this kind of like exciting tangent that had so many things are sort of contradictory design wise in the cast of the Muppet characters in general, and that's part of their appeal. But the pigs kind of brought in this squishiness and this kind of voluptuous, sort of curvaceous design style that's very different from Jim's aesthetic in a way. And I just wondered about that, like what sparked that direction, and you know, who kind of prompted that picking up of a chunk of foam and carving sort of curvy shapes into it rather than the pattern foam creation that Jim's characters were.
It was sort of an evolution in a way, because I came in as a costume designer, so I was used to working with patterns. My first characters that Jim asked me to do were the bad guys from the Muppet Musicians of Bremen. And those were built using flat foam patterns that I would then manipulate so that they had shapes to them. It was probably 3/4 half-inch foam that was then, you know, we found a way to flock them. Jim discovered this person once flocked everything site. But that was the first iteration of working with foam a lot, which I had not done before, but I really loved because it was another form of pattern making. And of course, I could add hair and eyes and all that kind of good stuff. From that, there was a bit that we did, and Jim initiated, called the glutton, which was used, I think, on the Ed Sullivan show.
Right, yeah.
And I helped Jim sculpt this iteration, and he chose to, because it was a big glob, he chose to do it in foam. And I loved working in foam. And they had used foam before, but mostly it was covered with fleece. Certainly for Sesame Street and all of those things, it had been fleece covered. So I decided that I would try to do some carving because of my background on foam, which is a very different material. And it started out with,
because you had sort of a sculpture background.
Yeah. And so it started out with big blocks of foam, which we would then take to the saw and make a profile, you know, just the basic shape of it. And then I'd attack it with a carving knife to take a few more pieces of foam off and try to discover the shape inside. So ultimately what it got down to was scissoring it with little manicure scissors.
Wow.
You know, you start with bigger scissors and you work your way down to little ones.
Yeah.
And then as a way of smoothing it, I would take it to a belt sander. And I would hold it up to the belt sander to smooth the finish. And it really took concentration. I sent one Statler through the belt sander when I was almost done with it.
Oh, no.
Oh, God.
But, you know, Don had taught me how to deal with my frustration. I went up on the roof of the building and I took a bunch of terracotta pots and I threw them against the wall and felt so much better. Came back down and started all over again. But that was the way we did it. And then once it was smooth, we would then paint it with the adhesive that we use for the flocking, and then pick a denier or a length and a thickness of flock to give it that surface that's so smooth and, as it turns out, protective. Because those puppets, after, when I went to look at all the puppets that were then going to be donated by the family, many of those that were flocked were in good shape because no light or air had gotten to the foam to disintegrate it.
Oh, wonderful.
Amazing.
Can you talk actually a little bit about the flocking process for folks who don't really know what that is?
Sure. Yeah, I can definitely talk about it. I was invited to speak to the American Flock Association. So I have great experience.
Wow.
That can't be a true thing. Is it?
It is. It is. Well, it's a big industrial thing. I said I must be the comic relief for this group because they are an industrial group that does things like when you look at a jewelry box, if it's not real velvet, it's flocked. And it was used in a lot of industrial instances to protect surfaces and things like that. So basically what happened is Jim had seen some demonstration somewhere by a fellow who lived out in Long Island, had a studio over a stream where he could use electrostatic flocking machine. And what he had done is he'd taken a cylinder with a screen on part of it with a handle, and he would fill it with this flocking material, little tiny pieces of flocking material, different lengths, different colors. And then he would put this adhesive on the surface, stick a pin or whatever he could into it to give it a charge, an electric charge. It was hooked up to a charge, which would then draw all of that stuff as you shook it to a perfectly uniform height and direction. This incredible finish. Jim took us I remember he had a sort of jitney bus kind of thing. We all went out to this guy's studio, watched him do it. We contacted a company that did a special adhesive for us to use. We all came back and got these little cylinders to use. And like I said, flocked everything we could find until we had, and then we realized that we had to wear protective outfits because this also draws it to anything that's moist, like your eye.
Yes.
So we ended up wearing sort of hospital gowns with goggles and
hazmat suits.
I have a couple of pictures of Carolee and me in our hospital garb doing the flocking of I think it was Musicians of Bremen.
Wow. And would you batch flock, like if you had a series of Muppets to build for a production or for a moment in the Muppet Show, would you kind of build them all, glue them all, and then sort of batch flock them, or was it more like character by character?
Originally it was character by character, but for instance, when we were doing Musicians of Bremen, all the hands, we would get all the hands together. If the colors were similar, but we could paint them any color, but we could do a darker color, a light color, and then use one color of flock, which would soften the differences in the color, but it was still equal. And so we would do that. We'd have them hanging up like a clothesline.
Love it. That's so interesting, the color thing. Because they would also be airbrushed, like Miss Piggy obviously has beautiful airbrush on the surface afterwards. But so some of the color application was underneath the flock.
It was all underneath. There was nothing airbrushed.
Oh, you just blown my mind.
Yeah,
That's
Peter,
so
in our previous episode, Peter confessed that it was a fascination for you when you were a child trying to figure out how to make a Miss Piggy puppet. Peter was trying to build your own Piggy puppets.
I had such a journey, and I went through. I was going to ask you before also about when you mentioned manicuring scissors and larger scissors. So picture me as a kid with a chunk of foam and doing this sort of, like, a lot of it was logical, and I think I saw some images in the background of the book, Muppets and Men. So I would do the sort of profile on each side of the chunk of foam, the top and front and everything, and sort of work my way in, similar to any sculpture. And then I didn't really think of manicuring scissors or anything smaller. I didn't have an electric knife. I didn't have any polishing things. So I'm here with larger scissors, which obviously take larger chunks, and the foam's flexible, so you end up with these groovy grooves kind of cut into it. And also the static electricity that builds up from cutting the foam with the scissors, and it gets on everything. Like, I was this kid walking out to my parents just covered in pieces of foam, looking so proud that I'd made this lopsided
I can
head.
imagine it. I can.
Yeah. But yeah, I would look at particularly the Muppets and Men book, but also Miss Piggy's Guide to Life. I would stare at photos of her, in the detailed, really close-up photos of her, and look at the surface. And all I knew was the carved from foam part. I didn't know about flocking at that point. So I would look at that velvety surface that had the foam kind of surface just barely visible through it in this really diffuse way, and just be like, is this material from space? Like, how do they get it to look like this?
When we discovered that we could actually paint these characters,
Yeah,
shade them, it was amazing. It was dampened by whatever small flock you would use. And the flock, by the way, covers totally 100%.
yeah,
Very little space for any
fascinating.
any open pores on the foam itself. It was mind-blowing for us too, because we realized that we could really shape and control colors for things.
The diffusion is also, I feel like, a key part of the look of the characters as well, where it has that kind of veil almost over the colors, so they don't look vivid and cartoonish. They've got this like beautiful subtlety to them.
Thank you. Nice to hear. That's nice to hear.
Yes, I mean, look, they're well-loved characters.
I'm sorry we weren't in touch back when you were struggling.
Well, that's another thing. I don't want to bring anyone down, but all I wanted to do was work at Jim Henson's workshop, and it just kind of never happened for a few reasons. And then obviously Jim passed, and I was really, really young when he did. But it was this moment where I just felt like something cut off. And eventually I found my way back to design and designing characters and all of that. So I'm very glad I stuck to my guns, but I would have loved, I would have been a child, but I would have been like illegally making everyone coffee just to be there.
Well, we would have welcomed you, I can assure you.
Oh, stop. I want to go back in time.
Well, so do I.
Can we talk about, actually, you know what? I as part of this walkthrough of how Miss Piggy was made, can you talk about the ears and the hair, kind of how those got built and attached?
Well, they were carved separately. They were painted with the adhesive, as I said, and then flocked, and then wired into the head of the puppet. And all the wigs thereafter had to be done so that they could wrap around those ears that were attached. But I have to tell you, before I started carving the pigs, because I didn't make any sketches.
Oh, really?
Went right into the foam. And I did 3 of them because Jim needed them for Return to Beneath the Planet of the Pigs.
Yes.
He came to me one day and said, I need 3 pigs. I always thought it was because I was from Minnesota. He thought some relationship with pigs. But anyway, I spent a lot of time in research. I think a lot of us did, but whenever I did a character, I would research like crazy. I would look for caricatures. I would look for animal pictures. I had an animal book that I just would fall apart because I used it so often. And so I really was looking at the anatomy and how I could adapt it so that it would be more anthropomorphic. I've always thought I should have a business card that said I was an anthropomorphizer. That was my job. And so the ears just came as, and I wired them so that you could actually tilt them. You could make them a different shape, but they didn't happen automatically. It would have to happen with a cut in the shot or whatever. But that was part of it, just making sure they had some shape.
Oh, even for character expression during a scene, that would happen sometimes, where you would
sometimes,
repose, or they would repose the ears. Yeah. Wow.
Not often, because they really, once they got going, this group of puppeteers, you didn't want to really stop them in the middle.
Yes, yes. Such an energy. 2 things. One is, you mentioned the wigs. Were they do they fit around the ears, or are the ears pinned, kind of wired through a wig? Is the wig cut to accommodate?
No, I would cut holes in the wigs.
Okay, right, yeah.
Or
So
even
would
a
I as a kid. Good.
Even
Know
a
that.
slit, even a slit would do it.
You figured that one
Usually if
out.
you look at the wig from underneath, they have either spirals or they have the hair's
Yes.
on a long sort of string. It's attached and they wind
Yeah,
it around
a
the head.
weft kind
So
of. Yeah.
normally, because of the way the shape of her head, wigs fit her quite well. And so what I would do is just cut a slit, and then because her ears were malleable, I just slip it on over. So she had a lot of opportunities for different wigs. And initially it was, the eye drawer. What
Right.
Go to the eye drawer, go to the wig drawer.
Yeah.
That's was
Well,
another
her
thing.
early wig looks a little bit like it came out of a drawer.
It did. It absolutely did. I mean, this was something she was going to be beneath the planet of the pigs. As I said, she
Yes.
wore a
Right.
helmet, she had a high neck uniform.
Mhm.
She
Yeah.
had boobs. I don't know if you've noticed. I
Yes.
have a drawing which is attributed to Mike Frith, but it's my drawing
Oh, is it really?
in illustrated whatever
In
the
Imagination Illustrated. Yeah.
parents book, right.
I thought that was
No,
Fritz.
that's mine for a bit that we did, and that's
Hmm.
early on when she still had hooves.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And so when she had to appear as a glamorous character,
Mm-hmm.
I had to make other arms. I didn't have time to make real arms and fingers, so that's how she got her lavender gloves.
Love that.
I just made the gloves and wired them so that they would, she could hold things and stuff. I had to put the pearls on because how else was I going to hide the fact that her neck went into a body that you didn't see in the uniform, but you would see. And there
Right.
was some silk laying around, so I just swagged her outfit.
Yeah.
And I went to
Love
the
it.
drawer and I got the wig.
Yeah. And were the gloves, were they initially just stuffed? The gloves were just stuffed, or was there a rough cut foam hand inside the gloves?
They were stuffed, and they were stuffed, and they were wired.
And
They
wired.
were wired,
Yeah,
and then
of
had
course.
polyethylene, no, polyurethane, polyester. I'm sorry, polyester stuffing.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
then at the wrist, they were attached. So there were,
Fascinating.
yeah.
And is that the
Wow.
way that it continued to be?
I don't know. I can't speak for now,
Right.
but for a
Yeah.
long time, yes, that's what they were.
Wow, and the lavender color, which suits her so well. This is one of those like 70s questions where it's like, how did you ever think of that color? But it is, it's a color in the 60s and 70s that was a big part of the palette. How did you come? What was the decision making process of the color for the gloves?
Part of that comes with what's available. I
Right.
have to tell people, you make use with what you have available. We had that, and we had a matching fabric for that. It's like a sort of spandex for the gloves.
Uh-huh.
So we had that fabric in-house. And again, because I said this was a really quick thing, Jim was heading off to England to do this bit.
Right.
I really had to put things together quickly.
You very quickly had to kind of like pull something together for Piggy Lee.
That's right, because she was leaving beneath the planet of the pigs to become this young star.
Ingenue.
Yes. Oh, I love that the practical development of the character mirrors her sort of backstory so well. Like the sort of humble origins and aspiration to be a star, and then she just literally gets cast and then glammed up in the way that a star does.
People have asked me if I knew that she was going to be as famous as she is, and I said, well, I really didn't, but she did.
Yes.
Because I keep thinking,
absolutely.
I gave her life. Frank gave her a purpose. Mike Frith gave her exposure. And Callista Hendrickson and Polly Smith also gave her class.
Oh, lovely.
We all sort of came together to create this being. And I think when people have real parameters, you probably are familiar with this, Peter. The more parameters or the more restrictions you have, the more creative you have to be, because you have to use what you can, what you find around you, and it really gets your brain going. So I think
Yeah.
that's a challenge, and it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about the eyes and sort of the selection of eyes when you were putting this new and improved Piggy together for Tonight Show?
Yes. First of all, I wanted something, she had to have makeup. So, of course, she had the eyelids
Mm-hmm.
and the lashes. She's had work, you can tell she had. But initially, it was the longest, fullest lashes I could find. And one of the questions was, are we going to be able to take these eyes and change them to, are they going to be wide open? Are they always going to be? And what's interesting to me is with both Frank and Eric Jacobson, who does her now, Piggy's eyes never change, or at least not that I know of. But you believe she's crying, she's angry, she's happy, she's seductive, she's all those things, all because of that performance,
Right.
and the purpose that these puppeteers have been able to give her.
Yeah.
Well, there's also something just special in the eye design, I think, that really help performers be able to achieve that with like the long lashes, as you said, and there's something that's dimensional and alive about those eyes.
Well, I think the iris definitely helps. The eyes, the irises, the pupils are felt, and they have an outside color. They have an inner black color. They have a little dot. Normally, they will have a little dot of white, and then they do sometimes have this sort of wheel indication around the edge, so that you start to see it as something. As it moves, you see that it takes a slightly different shape, and I think those little details have helped. And they were just done because that's what an eye looked like.
I was always really fascinated by how her eyes look so much more. There's so much more detail and kind of not human, but there's Muppet eyes are quite simple classically, and her eyes have this complex design that has the iris and the color and the lid's got this rich color, and then the eyelashes are directional. So when she looks around, it kind of gives her this feeling that her lids are kind of active in a weird way.
Well, it is my homage to Peggy Lee.
Yes.
Who was very glamorous.
Yeah.
Interestingly, when I first called her Piggy Lee, people just took that name. I think you can see from one of the videos that even Jim thought that was a good idea.
Lee, yeah.
But then the attorney, Osmond, said, she may not take this as an homage, and that could be a problem. So that's when she became Miss Piggy. Because it was Miss Piggy. Miss Peggy Lee was really how people referred to Peggy Lee.
Right. What has changed? I believe they are not carving the head anymore.
No, my understanding is that it's
casting.
now done as a casting mold.
Can you explain that a little bit?
As far as I know, what they did is they have taken a sculpt, which they would do, and then made a mold of it with probably a plaster mold. I'm not absolutely sure, because I'm not so sure about. I'm not as facile with casting and molding process. But what they do is they make a skin that reflects the shape that is able to be then put on some sort of a surface that is puppeteerable, an inner part. But my understanding is also that it's quite delicate, and so that they probably can go through quite a few per appearance.
Oh, really?
Depending upon, what the situation is, if you're in a film or something. But that would be expected. The interesting thing is the first pig that was carved with the manicure scissors lasted the entire first year of the Muppet Show, and probably the first couple of editions of the second year. But these are now they can make changes in the mold if they wish, and over the years they definitely have done that.
Yes.
But they still have to add on things like the eyes and the ears are different, a little different now.
Yeah, I wonder if the ears have wire in them now, because they're always quite upright, and I always just want to bend them forward.
Yeah, I don't know if that's possible to do now or not, but I think it's an evolution that's happened over time, so that She has changed. Probably Callista and Polly, the costumers, have seen most of those changes as they've worked on costumes and stuff for her over the age. Her shape changed.
Yeah.
All of that has changed. At one point I saw her as a real glam, and I'm going, no, 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 that's not my porcine pig.
So what was different there when you noticed that she was looking more glam? What kind of changes in the face?
She had a smaller waist, and it's like
Yes, right.
Yeah, but I think she has pretty much gone back to a more original body shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solid. I would say voluptuous.
Yeah.
Audiences really connected with Miss Piggy very quickly.
Yes, they did.
Why do you think that happened? What were folks connecting with?
Well, first of all, she started out, if you look at the opening credits for that first year, you see her as she's a chorus girl.
Yeah.
And she when she was originally done for Beneath the Planet of the Pigs, she had little button eyes.
Right.
I mean, amongst I did 3 puppets. One of them became Dr. Naga. One of them is just in a lot of general things, in all kinds of things. Every once in a while, I'll see him appear.
Yeah.
And then there was Miss Piggy. But she got her personality during the Muppet Show. Well, it started out, of course, with the Herb Alpert thing. But who knew that would go any farther?
Right.
A number of people puppeteered her for different reasons in different places. But at one point, there was a script, and Frank took the character. And that's why I say Frank gave her purpose, because this is the show where she gives Kermit the karate chop. And we in the studio were on the floor laughing. And I think everybody got up from the floor and said, that's it.
Yeah.
That's gotta be it. And he had an attitude about her, and he had this, I'm not sure he would agree with this, but sometimes I think he thought of her as a truck driver. A very,
he said that,
and definitely thinking of her as the best thing on earth. I mean, she really has a very high opinion of herself.
She does.
But even in spite of all of her foibles. So I think that's part of the charm that Frank brought to this character. And that's what won everybody over. And it happened very early in the show. When we were over in England, I guess maybe the first month we were there, first of all, we worked very hard. We had no days off.
Yeah.
We had
you were building for an episode a week.
Yes, and we had to pack everything in. I mean, this was all new to us. Plus, we had a new crew to work with, and they were lovely. But it meant getting to know people that weren't used to working with us.
Right.
So we were really no days off, and we were stressed. So I think what happened is we just made do with whatever we could, and we would get in this bus in the morning, our little jet to the studio from London, and people would see this little bus, and it said the Muppets, and people would say, "What's a Muppet?"
Right.
What is a Muppet? By the end of the season, it had already been out in England for some time. I mean, they aired it very quickly. And we were afraid we'd have to paint it out because people were saying, that's the Muppet. So it really did become popular very, very fast.
And that slang in sort of British parlance, there's the, when people call someone a Muppet, it's kind of not a positive thing. But
I know, I hear it all the time.
I don't think I did that. I don't think I know whether that at all predates as just a random parallel with the Muppets. It comes from the Muppets, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It's so, it's like standard British pub slang.
That's right. You Muppet. We watch a lot of, my husband and I watch a lot of British mystery. Everybody's always calling somebody a Muppet.
Yes.
and you're right. It's not always a kind thing.
No.
I take it still as a compliment.
Of course.
Do you want to talk about what were your favorite characters to create?
I think Statler and Waldorf.
Where did they come from?
I love them all, but Jim was very kind. I often, because I ran the shop, I would often be working late. I'd be the last one there, or, wanting to be there when people were still there. So if it was late, Jim would let me take a cab home, which was very nice because I lived in Brooklyn eventually.
Yeah.
And I would go down Park Avenue around Grand Central and look into the Yale Club at the second level
Mm-hmm.
with these portraits of these old guys. And I had this image of men sitting there drinking their brandy and smoking their cigars. And I knew that there was sort of a waiter or a butler that had this little room on the side. I mean, I could see him every time I was there preparing things. So I just made a sketch of these two old guys. I did these sketches. I showed Jim,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought Statler and Waldorf was a nice idea because of the two old hotels.
Right.
And I had just gone around, the old hotel. So for about a year, I didn't really hear. He said he liked them, but they didn't have anything for it. But evidently he and Jerry Jewell had come up with a way to do that in one of the shows.
Yeah, there was Sex and Violence as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they were in kind of a gentleman's club situation in that by
They
the
were.
fire, weren't
Yeah,
they?
it was very different.
Yeah, they were in these upholstered armchairs.
Yes.
And initially had cigars, but I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
went by the wayside at a certain point. But yes, they were in the environment that I had envisioned, as a club.
And then you saw some of your other characters coming to life. You worked on a lot of the Electric Mayhem.
I did. Well, there was Zoot, but I did. There were three of us that contributed drawings to Animal. Jim did one, I did one, and Mike Frith did one. So in fact, I have a sheet. I should probably just send this to you, Danny.
Oh, I would love to see it.
It's a drawing. I don't know if you can see this, but this is
Yeah.
Jim. Mine are the top two.
Mm-hmm.
I think the
all on
fuzzy
one
one
page.
is Michael's, and I think Jim's is maybe this one.
Right.
But these are the ones that I came up with, and it was because I did it sort of at the same time as we were putting Zoot and the characters together. So it became a collaboration, which then went to Don Celine, and the rest is history.
And he went with the sort of the fuzziest.
Yeah. Well, that was Don. He was, very good at that.
And the most extra secondary movement that they would talk about, like Jim and Don would talk about this idea of things that flowed and moved after the puppeteer had stopped moving.
So important. And I don't know if you've ever seen the picture talking about the mayhem of me with Jim, and I forget, I have one of the puppets in my hand, but if you look close, you see I'm wearing this thing around my neck. It's something we got at the Warlock shop that was for Dr. Teeth to wear. I went there and I got, cat's fur and we did this whole thing that when he was a finished puppet, he got to wear it, and he wore it for the first few years of the show, I think. I don't know if he still has it.
Love it. Yeah, that secondary movement thing is just briefly stepping back to La Pig. That secondary movement thing, I've always loved her hair for that, obviously, when she whips it around and gets angry and all of that. And the clothing being, some of her clothing's more tailored, but most of it has some element that moves or flows or can, like it's a bow or it's a swathe of fabric or something that works that way.
Well, that first outfit, of course, the bow was important. I mean, it's just a gestural thing that was very useful for the puppeteer. And,
and hit the arm rods.
Yes. You can't forget that the main thing is you're making for the puppeteer to be able to get his character around it. And you want to make it easy for them, and you try to make it as lightweight as possible, but not always successful.
Putting the scarf on her, sort of creating extra movement, creating extra glamour when you first turned her into the Piggy Lee character. I'm sure really it inspired the puppeteers as well to think of her in a particular kind of way and to give her kind of, at first, the really hyper femininity.
I'm hoping all the things that went into that helped. The scarf, the eyes, the wig, the name,
Mm-hmm.
all these things. And then, of course, Jerry's
Yeah.
wonderful scripts and Jim's direction for all of this.
So Bonnie, you were running the workshop for first season of the Muppet Show, and
Mhm.
then you left to start your own business where
Yes.
you've been working on puppets for commercials as well as mascots and costume characters.
Right. Well, you know what? When I left, the idea was to do commercials, which we
Mm.
did do a lot of in the US, but a lot of them in Europe.
Mm.
But we decided that if anybody asked us if we could do something, we'd just say yes.
Mm.
So we designed a couple lines of toys.
Mm.
We did the mascots came as a recommendation from Jim, the first one.
Oh,
I had
really?
never even thought of doing mascots.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Phillies, Philadelphia, it's a baseball team here.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
They went to Jim to get a mascot because they'd seen another one that seemed to be successful,
Mm.
who was independent. Not a lot of teams had them then. And Jim said, well, I don't do that, but what? This is another Jim. Is he generous? He said, why don't you get in touch with Bonnie Erickson? She can do this for you. So they
Yeah.
became the first client.
Mm.
And the
That's so
interesting
good.
thing is we offered them the copyright for a
Uh-huh.
very reasonable fee.
Yeah. Did they
And they
take
said,
it?
no, they thought it was like a 1 year thing.
Oh,
So we said,
really?
okay. It's now 43 years old.
Yeah. And they're still using him, the Phillies fanatic.
Oh, yes. And they just bought him from us.
Oh, did they really?
Oh
yes.
my God. That
Because
is amazing.
we had assigned the copyright.
Yeah.
But, after 35 years, the copyright law said if something is still viable, you have the right to negotiate again,
Mm.
which we
Wow.
did. And
Yeah.
they settled with us.
I'm sure that they were happy to have that.
Well, they came up with their own. They made some changes to the one
yeah.
that was there, but very minor. But the judge said, "Okay, you can use this other one."
Mm.
But the fans, they're not stupid,
Right.
and
Yeah.
they called it the faux fanatic, the fake fanatic,
Uh-huh.
the Walmart fanatic.
Oh, man.
Ultimately, the fanatic belongs in Philadelphia. The fan base is incredible.
Yeah.
We loved the people we worked with for 40 years there.
Mm.
But things change, and so
I used to live in Philadelphia. I was there for about 10 years.
really,
Yeah, and the sports crowds in Philadelphia definitely have feelings, a lot of feelings, and they express those feelings
it's unbelievable.
particularly strongly. Yeah.
Yes. And we would go to these meetings. I am not a sports person.
Mm.
Wait, my husband knows about sports, but he would tell me, please don't say anything about sports. Just stick to the performance and the entertainment value and the costume itself, because you're going to say something that's really pretty silly. So I did stay away from that part of it, but
Yeah.
unfortunately he knew. But we dealt with a lot of teams. We did 16 mascots.
Wow.
And we still have 6 of them that we don't own any longer, but that are now
They're still being used.
still being used.
Oh, that's amazing.
In fact, 2 of them in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
So even as you were working you had your own business, you also stayed connected to Henson over
Jim
the
gave
years.
us one of our first jobs. He hired me back to be a creative director for Sesame Street product line.
Mm.
Mm.
And I did that for 13 years.
I want your life.
I went back and oversaw the entire build of Fraggle Rock before it went up to Canada.
Awesome.
And worked with people, brought people in to work on that.
Create those characters.
I went back another year where I worked with the Ice Follies. I worked with the Christmas Toy. I worked with a number of things on one season when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
So
the very influential Christmas Toy.
Yeah. Who else did that? I wonder. So Jim was amazing to be so generous and to really stay in touch as he said he would. And we remained friends. So yeah, it was incredible association.
Yeah.
And for him to give us the job for the Phillies too. I mean, he just and his generosity.
Yeah, I did not know that. That's so wonderful. I had a Miss Piggy question about across the her evolution across the Muppet Show, the the run of the Muppet Show. Obviously, you see these very pointed changes, like change in her eyes at the very beginning, and then the flocking, the sort of perfecting of the flocking. I was always under the impression that there was a level of flocking even right from the very beginning, but she does look a lot less velvety. So, and the carving is more apparent on the head as
In
it
the first year?
as in the earliest part in the first year. But I was wondering about the more contemporary way the way they've done it the last few decades of having the sculpt, making the mold, and then casting her in foam latex, and then doing the flocking. I thought that happened sort of from the late part of the Muppet Show onwards, but were all the Muppet Show piggies carved?
No, I think they started doing the casting before it was the end of the Muppet Show.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
but I think that the molds were maybe sturdier
Mm.
Uh-huh.
than they are now because now they're very detailed and I
Yes.
just don't, having not been there, I don't know for sure, but I do know that yes, they started with a sculpt because it got to be very tedious. They did one copy of what I
Right.
did
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
doing it and time consuming.
And she's so complex, like this the to get right.
So they really, I think they probably made the right decision of
Yeah.
finding a mold that had the shape and they could repeat it again and again and again.
Hmm.
And that made sense in many ways.
Yeah.
I believe the first time that happened was on the Muppet movie.
Yeah, I'm sure because you're doing the movie. You can't, I mean, you're not going to have one make it all the way through and you
Right.
got many times you're going to need her. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure that became a real practical decision.
And she was out in the sunshine as well, and that UV light's not great for those materials.
Mm.
Well, like again, I said there she was pretty protected because of the flocking.
True.
I
Yeah,
mean,
the
going
glue and the
through all
flocking.
those boxes of puppets,
Yeah.
found that all of them were fine. If they had the fabric was fine,
Yeah.
those that were flocked were fine. Anything that was solid, like Scott foam, the very highly reticulated foam,
Yes.
it was like bag o Sam.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
unfortunate. Bag o Zoot.
Oh man.
Yes.
So they
Yeah.
had to be replicated in a different way so that they
Right.
would be
Yeah.
longer lasting. We didn't know. And Jim loved that foam because it lit so beautifully for television.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very lifelike. Yeah, it was interesting.
But not necessarily built to last.
Right. And we had no idea, when we started going through the warehouse,
Mhm.
we had no idea what was going to be viable and what wasn't.
Right.
Jim had
Mm.
saved things. They were put in a warehouse. Rhoda Cosme, who was the collections manager I worked with as the legacy
Mhm.
as we were reviewing everything, we'd go out to the warehouse for probably 3 years where it was Christmas. Bring the boxes in, we open them up, we photograph the puppets, we give a
Mm.
review of what they're like, we measure them, and I had started a database, so
Oh, so you
we put all this information in a database, so we knew exactly what was there, what condition it was in, what kind of restoration it would need.
Yeah, and some of the characters were complete dust within
Anything
their.
from the inside, if it
Yeah.
was Scott foam, it
Yeah.
was dust.
Mm.
Even the soft foam, if air could get to it at all, it would disintegrate
Yeah.
or be very soft. So,
Yes.
but all very easy to replace because the outside worked fine,
Mm.
except for those
Yes.
things that were flocked, in which case the two old men, for instance, were still two old men.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, that's
amazing.
wonderful.
They're in museums now, but
Well, I love I am kind of obsessed with the museum exhibits.
yes.
I have been to the Jim Henson exhibition. There
Which
was
one?
the tour, well, the tour that came here. I saw
Oh,
that
yeah.
when it was in San
Yes, the
Francisco,
moment.
and then what you put together for Museum of Moving Image. And so I know that you've been involved with sort of setting up all of those exhibits.
It was such a pleasure. What happened is we had this whole database,
Mhm.
and we would regularly meet with Jane Henson and Karen Falk and Rhoda and myself.
Mhm.
And Rhoda and I would make recommendations on where we had three places really things should go.
Mhm.
The Smithsonian,
Mhm.
we thought really original pieces and some of the very early stuff
The Sam and Friends
would
characters,
be
things like
best
that.
there.
Yeah.
There was the Museum of the Moving Image because it was in New York City where Jim had done a lot of his work, and that seemed the appropriate place. And it talked about television and film, both of which Jim was really involved with. And then there was the Center for Puppetry Arts in Atlanta, which he had been there for the opening, and we had a very close relationship, as did the family. So those were the three places. And what we did is we went through and tried to be judicious in recommending to the family where pieces should go and who would be best able to take care of them. The family, of course, had a say in all of that as the final decision. And we tried to be equitable with who got what. I think, there's like 400 or 500 pieces went to each of those places,
Really?
except for the Smithsonian, who probably have 35 to 40 altogether.
Yeah.
And the Museum of the Moving Image launched this touring exhibit from additions because there was enough stuff given to people so that if once it was restored, and the Henson Company restored a lot of those for the museum for it to go on tour. So that tour was very successful. We went to 9 cities. I would go to each one along with Wendell Walker, who was responsible for setting up the show at MoMI and then traveled with it, as well as Barbara Miller was the curator for the show. I would go, once they had all the work done, I would go and pose the puppets in what I hope was an engaging way and do a couple of interviews and then get to meet some of the people who'd come to see this. And I would say, as far as I know, every museum that had the exhibit increased their attendance for these.
So fun.
So how wonderful is that people found this?
The magnetism
touching.
of those characters. Yeah.
And it's always so beautiful to see everything close up and just to see the artistry of it.
Yeah. I remember giving a speech to some of the sponsors of a museum. I think it was in San Francisco, actually. I'm not sure. And they wanted me to just illustrate what it was that I did to pose these puppets. And I had Bunsen and Honeydew and Beaker. And I had Beaker with his mouth up like this. And I said, the whole idea is just to make them as amusing and entertaining as possible, at which point I went and just took the mouth and dropped it down and everybody broke into laughter. So, but I found that a lot of people, at a time when there weren't a lot of things that you could watch on TV that a family could enjoy, Muppet Show was one of those things that everybody did.
Right.
And they remember seeing it with their families, and that's a really good feeling for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I have a really nerdy museum question.
Oh, good.
That for the Smithsonian, I believe they have 2 Miss Piggies. There was one that was donated in 2013 with a whole bunch of other stuff. And then there was another one that was made for the Smithsonian in 2016.
When we donated the original, or the piggy that we had, that was the earliest piggy that we had. Maybe not the earliest, but it was the earliest one we had.
Yeah.
She was quite old at the time. And I remember that we did a cover for Smithsonian Magazine that featured her wearing the Hope Diamond. Oh, that's a story. The people from the Museum of Natural History, or not Natural History of, I guess it was Natural History, have the gem collection. And the curators there allowed us and the museum magazine people to show Miss Piggy with the Hope Diamond. And we went in there. There was security. It was before the museum opened.
Yeah.
The people who handle that jewelry came in and very carefully took the necklace and gave it to me to put on me. Wow. It fit perfectly. We had her set up. The photographer is there with a woman with her laptop, because what they're doing is compositing everything. Yeah. So he would take a picture. She has it on the computer, blah, blah, blah. We kept going through the whole thing so that he could get everything he needed. At one point, she said, I run out of power on my computer because I haven't been able to plug in anywhere. We're going to have to, I have to get some power set up. So they said, well, go plug it in. She plugged it in and blew the lights.
Oh no.
And
Oh,
the
wow.
doors
Oh, my
closed.
God.
The police.
Oh my gosh.
And this was when they
It's
were
the
doing the
great, it's
movie
the
where
great Muppet Caper.
this is where they were doing the jewelry heist. It was
Yeah.
hilarious. It was like,
Oh my
oh
gosh.
my gosh, what's happened here?
All that security.
So
Oh my
everybody was very
God.
concerned. So I forgot that she was wearing the necklace. I went to take her to put her away, and they said, "Wait."
Oh, it's like when you accidentally walk out of a store holding something and you realize you've stolen it. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah,
you would have been the best jewel thief because you would have been so
They
unassuming.
did call it to my attention. So
They did.
we did get it back
Yes,
to them,
luckily.
but it was like the timing couldn't have been funnier, actually.
gosh.
And everybody
Wow.
just was amazed. So it was very
That-
funny. And there were the police. I think
Oh
there
my
were
gosh.
three police presence in the
That
room.
is such a
Sure.
Muppety story. That's that Muppet energy getting into the
Yep.
situation.
That's our kind of photo shoot.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to the power that Miss Piggy has.
Mm.
Even, still that this is an item that really nobody can touch. That's the
Yeah.
whole point of putting it in this museum. And
Yep.
the one person who actually gets to wear it
I know.
is Miss
And
Piggy.
if
That's
you go
amazing.
online, I'm sure you can look up Miss Piggy Smithsonian. I hope you see that photograph. It's lovely.
That's
I've-
wonderful.
I've seen also that there was one with Dorothy's ruby slippers.
Oh, the ruby slippers. They
Yeah.
are so popular. I think, well, that's the biggest thing they have for the Smithsonian
Mm.
Mhm.
American History Museum. The slippers are just so popular.
Yeah.
And I think there may be one or two other versions of it, but they've
There are
obviously
I think there are 3 in total.
maybe. But I know the ones at the Smithsonian have been, I mean, they will do anything to keep them in shape so that they can be displayed because they are the
Mhm.
most popular thing.
Mm.
And evidently Kermit comes a close second.
Ah,
Naturally.
2 icons.
Yeah.
And of course, they now have an exhibit that shows some of the Salmon Friends puppets.
Mhm.
One of the first, the pre-Grover Grover.
Right.
Mhm.
So this is a whole entertainment section that
Yeah,
features
they
a
just
lot.
opened like a new wing. Is that
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Took them a long time to get this together, and it's now
Yeah.
open. And I've been down there to see it. It's really nice to see them there. It is the Museum of Notes for the US, so
Mm.
it's good.
Yeah, and again, it's a testament to the characters, their popularity, and the warmth people have for them.
Yes, thank you to every puppeteer that ever put a
Yeah.
hand in a puppet.
Yes, and every designer that made them
Thank you.
so beautiful and so usable too.
Hope so. Certainly hope so.
So all of the old characters, the old puppets, are there still any that are in like a Henson archive, or have they really all just been distributed to these?
Everything
Museums.
that was in the warehouse at that time was
Mm.
distributed.
Wow.
We have, what is it, the mountain that has the presidents on it?
Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore?
Mount Rushmore. That's with one of the, it will probably be displayed at some point somewhere because even that was there and was kept.
Oh, that's
Um,
amazing.
So all of those pieces then have been distributed. I don't know what they've done in terms of saving things, keeping things as they go through and do new things. But of course, it's now Disney that owns the classic Muppets.
Right.
Yeah.
It's Sesame that owns the Sesame Street Muppets. And I feel very fortunate that I got them all to play together and do
Yeah.
Carnegie Hall
Mm.
in our almost month-long homage to Jim in New
Mm.
Zealand, in Wellington.
Mm-hmm.
Which was very special for all of us. So this it's sort of a different world
Yeah.
when there are so many people involved.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you must hear, when folks talk to you about Miss Piggy and you as the creator of Miss Piggy, you must hear a lot about kind of what the character means to people.
Mm-hmm.
And what do folks tell you about kind of what Miss Piggy kind of means to their lives?
Well, women certainly see her as a spokesperson, which to me has such irony.
Right.
And yes, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
I think it was a breakaway for a program to have a character like that. that people could identify with. I have to admit, I haven't had a lot of. I think there are men who like her, but I'm not sure what their immediate approach is. If they like the sassiness, if they find her sexy. I'm not sure.
90% of them are gay men, I can
Yeah.
promise.
Yeah, I believe Peter and I can fill you in on
Yeah,
especially
well,
what gay men see in her.
yeah, and also Peggy Lee. I mean,
Yeah, of course.
all of that was part of that, and Garland, the
Mhm.
just that whole appeal. And God bless him. I'm really happy you all like.
Look, we
Um,
love our divas.
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And so, but we've heard from people at these exhibits because we don't have a Miss Piggy, but we have the Piggy Baby. We have the
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
in this traveling show
Yeah.
that a lot of people are familiar with her through the cartoon,
Right.
Mm,
which is a wholly different aspect of who Piggy was as at the start. So
Right.
absolutely.
that people are very fond of her from that aspect as well.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
And being able to see the puppet version, kind of
Yeah,
knowing her from
yeah,
the cartoon and then
she's
seeing them
very cute.
in 3 dimensions. They're so beautiful.
Yeah, they are. The expertise in all of this is really amazing. And also, not just the Muppet Show, but when you look at Labyrinth or you look at Dark
Mhm.
Crystal, you look
Mm,
at the handwork that went into
Yeah.
you can see it a million
exquisite.
times and find new things to see and appreciate. Very professional people working with professional materials,
Yeah.
doing great, great work, I think.
Yeah, making
Yeah.
Craftsmen, artists.
these little works of art, each one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Bonnie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for letting me be here. This has been great fun, really.
It's been so special to be able to talk to you. Really, really appreciate it and appreciate all your time.
Absolutely.
And thank you to Peter Savieri for joining me as well. And kissy kissy, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Fantastic Miss Piggy podcast, brought to you by my friends at toughpigs.com. In the next episode, I'll be talking to Ryan Rowe from Tough Pigs and the podcast Moving Right Along, a Muppet Movie Podcast, where we'll look at a pair of Muppet specials and ask the burning question, is Miss Piggy famous? Thank you to executive producer Joe Hennis from Tough Pigs for connecting me with Bonnie and supporting this entire lunatic endeavor. And thanks as well to the editors of Muppet Wiki for providing me with information that makes this show possible. If you have comments or questions, or you know stuff about Miss Piggy that you'd like to share, you can write to me at fantasticmisspiggy@gmail.com. That's fantasticmisspiggy@gmail. And please do. It's been really nice hearing from people. I'm also on X at fantasticmisspiggy, or come and join us on the Tough Pigs Discord. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.
Gee, I'd like to see you looking swell, baby. Diamond bracelets Woolworth doesn't sell, baby. Till that lucky day, you know darn well, baby. I can't give you anything but love.